Good evening, Robert Scribbler, and welcome to another episode of my ongoing modern climate fantasy series, Helkey. In this episode, I will read for you Chapter 8, Saving Mottle. But before I get into that, I'd like to share with you a little bit of my original map artwork for the series. I'm co-creating a series of maps and places where the story occurs. And this particular map is Mottle's Grotto, which will involve the present chapter, which I will be reading for you tonight. For those of you who have been following these video blogs, Myra has made her way to a set of rocky spires to shelter from a hellstorm that is currently underway. And I will go ahead and start reading the episode for you now. What starts out as an odd sleep where I feel like I'm in two places at the same time swiftly proceeds to dead tired, I don't dream anything. I can vaguely sense the storm roaring outside, the water lashing in on me, the sulfur scent of hell's air, the cooler and cleaner air coming up from the cracks. A part of my mind is still alert. I'm in fracking hell after all. A place full of dangerous devils, along with various lurking demons, all hungry in their own ways for the wisps of earthly mortals. I don't know what wakes me hours later. Perhaps it is the sudden quiet outside. Perhaps it is the sound of scuffling and muttering. Probably both. But all I know is there is a whip-sharp crack and a single spark from my name curse as warning. Then I am wide awake. I am hangry. Bob is hangry. Something hisses pitifully and angrily from a 3-foot wide crack about 5 feet off to my right. A big green scaly lizard head emerges. A long tongue flickers out between hooked teeth the size of my forefinger, tasting the air. Bulbous, glowing yellow eyes shoot beams like spotlights into the cleft where I am resting. The eye lights flicker over me, and then continue on toward the raging storm outside. Smell something soft. Smells soft. Smells of wisp. Strong wisp. Tasty wisp. It clacks its jaws and sound echoes out. Then it bobs its head up and down as the rest of its body emerges from the hole. I freeze as the 12-foot-long lizard emerges. It possesses a sinuous body with a spiny ridge along its back. 4 legs, the forelimbs of which look dexterous enough to manipulate objects, propel it in a chameleon waddle hop. On its right shoulder is a glowing blue orb. I know what this object is somehow. One of my memories from before the potion has resurfaced. That orb holds captured wisps, kind of like a devil's lunchbox, power crystal, and money purse all wrapped up in one. Warb for a wisp orb. So this is a devil? Perhaps it was once human, but since it is keeping wisps, it has now transferred fully over as a hell native. Probably did so to survive. Humans in hell learn quick that it's either be prey or predator. There's really very few other options in the zero-sum world of hell. Could it be the Mottle? Bob, the lizard devil, hisses to himself. Hot spittle from its mouth splatters toward me. Where it falls into the water, it causes a boiling reaction. No, this smells. The long tongue flicks the air. I shift away from it as it licks the space where I was sitting a moment before. This smells human, strong, close. It pauses to ponder for a moment. Besides, Bob ate other mottles. The last grew cunning, no longer stays on ground. It clacks its jaws again, making quite a racket. Thank the fricking gods I set up a full-body Ignaris curse. Saved my ever-loving life. But it won't last long. The thing can clearly smell me, and it keeps licking the space I was in only a moment before as I dance away. It can actually see me, but it doesn't realize it yet. Won't take long, though. It's already engaged its other senses. I could use the element of surprise while I still have it. I lift my hand. As I do, I hear the wind starting to pick up outside again. The calm eye of that monster storm is about to pass, bringing with it the second half of its destructive force. I can't think about that too much now. I have the devil lizard Bob leaping around and waving his tongue in my face. My magical tattoo begins to spark as my intention to fight fills it. I'm cornered. I have little doubt that Bob here would eat me and devour my wisp in an instant given even half a chance. Not gonna let that happen. This situation calls for one of my original curses. No half measures will do. I shift to the side and position myself to strike at Bob's shoulder and through its wisp orb. Such a strike will take away his devil magic, free the wisps, and hopefully put Bob immediately out of commission all in one go. That's the theory, at least. But to do it, I need the right weapon. Lunin, Sfert Umbra! A beam of moonlight shoots from my magical tattoo into my hand as I chant the invocation. The light casts a deep shadow that magically forms a razor-sharp blade. I hold its light and shadow as a rough, sword-like form in my hand, leaping forward to strike. Its point catches the warb, punches through its hard outer shell, and then starts to slice into Bob's shoulder. But Bob is quick. He survived hell, so his instincts and reflexes are honed to a T. Bob leaps back. My blow is not lethal. Bob wails as his broken warb falls to the ground and wisps begin to shoot out from it. Willowy ghosts that remind me of flying jellyfish dart into the air, just more spiky and less globular. They dance up along my moonshadow blade and flow swiftly into my name curse. It grows bright and energy fills me. I hear the wisps' voices in my head. They are thanking me for freeing them, for giving them shelter. I get a brief image of the inside of my name curse as these wisps see it. Some geodesic dome structure filled with light and music. 5 wisps now float there, once humans who were trapped by their own actions, by Asmodeus's subterfuge or capture, or by pure bad luck in hell. Now they're somehow sheltered and temporarily liberated. I am completely fracking surprised by this turn of events. Bob, meanwhile, is wailing even as the returning storm wind is starting to roar. A few bits of sand and grit are making their way into my cleft. The wind has shifted. The cleft has become less protective. Stole them! Bob roars at me, oblivious to the environmental shift. See you now, human, dead! He turns the spines on his tail toward me and then launches them like fricking spears through the air at me, point blank. I have only one option, dodge like hell. Throwing caution to the wind, I dive head first into one of the crevices. I fall 10 feet down into some kind of pit cave that has about 3 feet of water at the bottom. Splash! In a second, I'm up. The water broke my fall and I'm unhurt. I stand, propelled upward mostly by panic. Just above me, a row of spines is embedded in the wall. The moon-shadowed blade refires in my hand. It's a strong enchantment and should last for an hour. One of its utilities is I can't drop it. It keeps coming back. Dead now, human wisp thief! Bob shouts from above as he prepares to lunge down on me. I start to scramble back, but the ground is uneven and underwater, so I stumble. The roaring outside has now grown extreme. There is a great inrush of air as Bob springs. He never makes it to the bottom. The wind has returned, but this time from the opposite direction. It is exactly lined up with the opening of the cleft. Razor sand and missiles propelled in what must be about 200 miles per hour invade the cleft, riddling Bob full of holes even as the devil lizard is thrown bodily against the back wall. Luckily for me, the hole I dove into gives me cover from this death wind. There is a sparkling of blue-white light as Bob's wisp emerges from his dead corpus. It flickers and bounces around in the wind, then drifts down toward me. My name curse sparks in rejection. One of these sparks embeds in the wisp. As this exchange occurs, Bob's wisp darkens, becoming inky black. It flows down into the water like a snake, then shoots toward me. It leaps into the air, twisting behind me. Slowly, it fades into my shadow. I hear one last final echo of Bob's voice in my head. "Hangry!" it hisses. And somehow it is there, behind me, a devil's wisp locked up in my shadow. My name curse's magical tattoo sparkles a few more times, mysteriously. In the core of my being, I can feel Bob behind me as a dark wisp. He is somehow locked up in my shadow by the magic of my name curse, just as the other 5 wisps, ones it accepted, are sheltering directly within its magical architecture. What the hell? I'd lifted my moon blade into a guard position to defend myself. I drop it a little and let out a long sigh of relief. That was way too fracking close. I pat myself to make sure everything is whole and unbroken. My first thought is of the glass Perrier bottle. Holy crap! But my hand lands on it and finds it somehow still in one piece. We'll need to figure out some way to protect the glass, but what to do now? I stand for about a minute in the dark, somewhat smelly water and consider my options. There's no way I'm going back up into that cleft. Already little bits of debris are raining down on me. Even worse, water is starting to flow in. It's rising, so pretty soon I'll be swimming and then pushed back up toward that wind of death. I turn the light of my moon-shadowed blade down the crevice to see how deep it goes. It narrows, but continues on. Looks like my only option. I struggle forward through the water, even as more pours down through the cleft above. The ground is uneven. I stumble. Occasionally I fall into a pit and have to swim. I'm crazy super careful about keeping my Perrier bottle safe. The water that gets up my nose and flows into my mouth makes me sick with its stink. And this is mostly rainwater, not the disgusting putrescence of that hell ocean. But it's still definitely not fit for drinking. Where in this damn place is the water safe? My progress is hampered as the crevice narrows. At least it's starting to head upward. I'm slowly gaining ground, but the flood is gaining faster. Pretty soon the water is up to my chest. At this point I'm having to squeeze to move forward, pushing the pocket with a Perrier bottle in ahead to keep it safe. I count my blessings that it's not plastic. The chemicals in the water feel pretty reactive, and I don't think a thin film of petrochemical goop would last long in such a toxic bath. Lord only knows what it's doing to my skin. I try not to think about it all that much. I've come to a narrow spot just before a larger open area. I can see a pool of water widening ahead. There, a chamber opens above. The moon shadow blade's light flickers on dark rock formations and irregularities on the ceiling. Up there, I can hear storm winds roaring. Little bits of grit and water rain down in a gentle drizzle. An opening is nearby, if not close enough to let the storm's full fury inside. Some 30 feet away, is a rough subterranean beach strewn with boulders. I struggle to wedge myself through the narrow opening and into the pool. I kick, push, and squiggle. I feel stones scraping my skin and clothes. The water starts to flow over my head. I breathe out and hold my breath, trying to make my body as thin as possible. My lungs burn. My eyes and nose are filled with sulfur crud. One last kick, and finally I'm in. My head breaks the surface. I choke and splutter. Water is pouring in behind me, thrusting me forward. I swim to the shore and clamber onto a large boulder. The water is rising, but it's also starting to flow out of other cracks in the chamber. Its rate of rise starts to slow. Lifting my moonshadow blade, I inspect the ceiling. It's uneven enough that I can't see into all the shady cracks. For a second, I glimpse something reflective in the darkness, but it's gone as quick as it appeared. Probably some water that splashed onto the ceiling. I sit down, still somewhat hot as water drips off me. I break out my precious Perrier bottle and take another drink. My stomach grumbles. The last food I had was at Starbucks, so no real dinner. Pretty soon now, I'm the one that's going to start to get hangry. No use for it now, though. But man, am I going to have some questions for my mirror specter when 7 o'clock Berlin time rolls around again. I lift my name curse to scrutinize it. The wisps have voluntarily energized its structure, giving some of their natural force to aid my magic. It has somehow made a safe place for them in hell. Their energy no longer bleeds out into the fallen world's deadly environment. They're no longer subject to the predations of hell's malicious populace. I turn to look at my shadow. It dances in the light of my sparks and moonshadow blade. I can see the dark wisp undulating within it like some kind of Cthulhu tentacle. It is also somehow removed from hell's environment, no longer able to prey or to be preyed upon. I feel a bit of wisp energy coming from it as well. This give is more reluctant, yet somehow it seems to sense that I protect it now. Well, this is all damned fucking strange, I say out loud, as I wonder if the memory drought was meant to cover up the knowledge of my curse in my own mind. But that really doesn't make much sense. I just discovered it again. More likely, my lack of memory about my curse's ability to shelter wisps in hell was due to collateral damage from the magical drought. As I'm sitting, pondering these mysteries, there is some movement up on the ceiling. A bat-like shape unfolds its membranous wings, then leaps into the air. It is about human-sized, but the wings are rather large. In merely 2 flaps, it has alighted on my boulder. Oh shit! I scramble for my moonshadow blade and put the sharp as light and shadow form between me and it as I settle into a defensive stance. The thing makes a weary chuck sound through its vertically open mouth. It has 2 eyes sprouting from its head. Its body is long and mostly flat. I said it was a bat before, but the creature looks more like a large blanket with a backbone, long tail, and fuzzy head with enormous eyes and ears. Its landing was more like a belly flop than the way a bird typically lands, since its limbs are mere protrusions from the corners of its blanket-like body. It makes no move to attack as it repeats its inquisitive chuck sound. The wisps in my name curse chime, giving me a sense that this creature is somehow familiar to them. They do not feel threatened by it. The bob wisp is silent, but it wriggles a bit in recognition. I look over at the creature again. This one doesn't have a devil's warb. It's not a wisp devourer. Curious. I wonder how it survives here in hell. What are you? I ask. Can you talk? At this question, it spins around, lifts its tail, and tentatively extends the end in my direction. The tail is long and tipped with what I would best describe as leaf-like fronds at its end. The creature waves the tail in front of me. I recoil. The tail waving pauses, then resumes, inviting. I get no sense of aggression. You want me to take this? I point to the strange-looking tail. The tail waving pauses again and then starts to back up. Then the waving continues and advances. Oh, what the hell? I lift my right hand and slowly extend it toward the tail. In my left, I'm still holding my moon shadow blade in case there's any funny business. The tail immediately thrusts forward and wraps its leaf fronds around my hand and forearm. There is some kind of slime exuding from it. When it touches my skin, my vision blurs, and I am swimming in a flood of thoughts coming from the creature. I am Mottle, it thinks to me, and I suddenly remember the Bob Lizard Devil's talk of models. As I think this, a flood of memory follows. Mottle, or whatever it was called before it became Mottle, is in a crowd at a concert on Earth. He is hanging out with friends, partying, dancing, jumping up and down to loud music. I'm confused for a moment. Then I realize Mottle is showing me a scene of his former self. There is a screeching sound as the music suddenly stops. Loud cracks of gunfire erupt. I see people falling under hails of bullets. There are muzzle flashes coming from the balcony of a far-off hotel. Mottle as human is down. He is bleeding. He reaches out to hold hands with a young lady I think must be his girlfriend or fiancée or wife. They are bleeding out together. She is passing out. His vision starts to darken. It turns black and then returns as an ethereal blur. I realize the Mottle person is dead now. I am seeing his wisp's sight. Through his eyes I see the terror hounds, hellhound demons attracted to mortal fear. They are bounding through the dead, tearing out their wisps. One is upon the girl. It rips her wisp out. Suddenly, Mottle's wisp is grabbed in one of the hound's jaws. The hounds holding the two wisps run through a temporary Helkey. They emerge as flashes upon the plains of Infernia. They are bounding along a knife-shaped lake toward a tower backed by a broken black and red land that billows endless smoke. There is a crack of lightning from the sky. The terror hounds are stunned. The two wisps flee together, flying as they spread to take the form of the Mottle-type creature before me. Hell has granted them their new shapes. A chance at life of a sort, clothing them in a shape suitable to their terrible new environment, as happens with wisps taken in so unnatural fashion. They alight upon the rocky formation around me, finding shelter. I get a sense that this is their new home. Visions rapidly blur forward. There are other Mottles, years of life, and then the green devil lizard Bob arrives to hunt them down one by one. Mottle is the only one left. His sadness and loneliness consume me. I feel Mottle's searching in my thoughts. I feel the wisps in my name curse chime in recognition. They exchange thoughts with Mottle. The story of my encounter with Devil Lizard Bob is relayed. I feel an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Then, a simple thought. You've saved Mottle, and those dear to Mottle. I can help you back. I marvel as the tail withdraws. How could such a creature exist in hell? But before the thought is finished, Mottle has flown forward and covered me with his blanket-like body. There is a shifting as he changes color. The contact brings further thought. Myra rests. Safe now. Mottle will protect. keep safe. The membranous body of Mottle is somehow cooler, and I can see that he's camouflaged me, formed himself into a kind of mini-tent, the shape and texture of the rock I'm on. It's much better than the Ignara's curse alone. I can't immediately sleep, I'm too charged up. Never would I have imagined I'd make an ally in hell, much less be able to steal wisps away from devils themselves. Maybe my parents actually knew what the hell they were doing when they sent me. Maybe I knew what I was doing when I volunteered to go. Feeling a bit more confident, I let myself drift off. Above and outside, the storm starts to slake its fury. And that concludes Chapter 8, Saving Mottle. Thank you for joining me. Chapter 9 is still a work in progress. We should have that available in text form on my written blog, scribblersfantasticalworkshop.com, which I'll provide a link for you in the description of this video blog. Thank you for joining me again, and I hope you all have a fantastic evening. Take care.